Hi everyone, this video will walk you through Project 1, the rhetorical analysis. So this is the first major writing project we'll be doing this semester. And so first let's talk about the due dates. So your rough draft for Project 1, and we'll get into the specifics of what that'll look like here in just a moment, will be due Tuesday, September 3rd. Your peer review feedback will be due by Sunday, September 8th, and your final draft will be due by Sunday, September 15th. Now, rhetorical analysis. Why are we writing it? Why is it our first project that we're doing in English 2010? So remember that our focus is on public rhetoric, and I find that a rhetorical analysis is a great way to start to think about not just what the persuasive message is, not just what the argument is, but how the writer, how the speaker is getting people to accept that argument, how they are getting an audience to say, yeah, that's a good idea, or yes, this is something I could get behind. That's the point of the rhetorical analysis, is to go beyond just saying this is the argument they're making, to say this is how they are trying to make that argument. This is how a writer or speaker is trying to convince. These are the specific strategies they are using. So what you will need to do for the rhetorical analysis is you'll need to write a 2 to 3 page analysis on one of the following pre-selected artifacts. Now, one thing I want to mention really quickly is that I use this term artifacts. I might use them interchangeably with articles because for this year, I'm using all articles from local publications. In the past, I've done videos or kind of comics that you might find online or in newspapers, but the term artifacts here is taken from rhetorical studies and rhetorical theory. You find it if you take really any English classes beyond 2010, or if you take any courses in communication, you might run into this term there as well. But artifacts essentially comes down to whatever it is we're analyzing. So these articles here are all artifacts. Videos can be artifacts, photos can be artifacts. So if you see that term, that's what I'm referring to, is just the thing that we're analyzing. In your analysis, you will need to respond to the following questions or prompts. So you're going to need to summarize the artifact, including a discussion of its historical, political, and or social context. So really looking at the rhetorical situation of the piece. You'll need to identify the key purpose of the artifact. So you can see how we're still building off of that rhetorical situation and constructing it for the reader there. So not just what are they trying to argue, but why are they trying to argue it? And then you'll need to discuss how the author uses logos, pathos, and ethos to persuade the audience of their argument. So this is where we're really getting into the how they're doing it. So they're using these numbers as an attempt at logos, or they're using this word or this imagery or this illustration to evoke a type of emotional response. Or they're citing this particular individual because they're authoritative or credible on this topic. So this is where we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how that persuasion is getting done. So, and when you do that, it's important to cite specific examples. So you don't just want to say, oh, they're pulling at ethos at pathos by making people sad. Okay, fair point. The author might be doing that, but how? What part of the text made you come to that conclusion? And walk us through how that part that caught your attention represents the sadness that you've identified in your analysis. And finally, what you'll want to do is speculate who you believe the intended audience is and discuss whether the use of logos, pathos, and ethos was appropriate given that intended audience. So maybe you find yourself saying, well, given the topic, given the purpose, and the way that they're attempting to go about it, I think the audience would be those who live in northern Utah or those who are Dixie State students. So it can be fairly broad, or it can be incredibly narrow, again, depending on what artifact you select and the observations that you make. And you might find yourself saying, yeah, the author was trying to reach out to college students in this piece, but their appeals or their attempts at logos just didn't stick the landing. It didn't work. They're citing content that college students might not be familiar with, or they're trying to make an emotional appeal that just doesn't really exist for college students regarding this topic. So, or you could say, yeah, it was absolutely perfect. This is a topic college students care about, or these are really compelling numbers that you can't push back against, or that are extremely difficult to. So, again, that's all going to vary based off of the artifact you select and who you understand to be the intended audience. So now that I've laid out what exactly you're going to do, it's your responsibility to go through each one of these articles and decide which one you want to write on. I don't care which. It is all up to you. It can be something that you're particularly interested in. Maybe it's something that corresponds with another course that you're taking here on campus, or whatever the case may be. So again, I don't care which artifact you personally select, but just make it one that you would learn something writing from, or that you could take away from writing an analysis on. So that's my recommendation. All right, essay format. So your paper should follow MLA guidelines. So it should be double spaced, Times New Roman 12-point font. Your last name and the page number should be in the header. You should have a centered title and paper identification, including your name, my name, the course name, and the date of submission should all be included as well. So let's talk about the rough draft submission details. On or before September 3rd, you will need to submit a rough draft to the appropriate submission folder on Canvas. Now, there are two assignment submission folders on Canvas. There is one that says Project 1 Rough Draft. There is another one that says Project 1 Final Draft. Make sure that you are submitting it to the rough draft submission folder. So submit it there. Your rough draft must be a minimum 1.5 pages, but if you have more and you'd like feedback on more content, you're certainly welcome to include that. To receive credit for the peer review process, you must submit your rough draft on time. So by 11:59 p.m. on September 3rd. Canvas will assign you 2 people to provide feedback for. If you don't submit your rough draft on time, Canvas isn't going to assign you people to provide feedback for. I can do it on my end, but it's not a guarantee that someone else submitted their work late that I can pair you up with, which might result in you losing points. So just make sure that you get your stuff in on time. That way you don't have to worry about it. Peer review process. So after September 3rd, your rough draft will be assigned to 2 classmates, and you will be assigned 2 classmates to provide feedback for. Sometimes those are the same individuals, sometimes it's not. It just sort of depends on how Canvas wants to approach it. There will be a Project 1 peer review form provided in the assignment description folder, as well as in the weekly module for when the rough draft is due. And it will have a number of questions that will help guide you through providing thoughtful feedback for your peers. There are a handful of questions, so you will respond to those thoughtfully and provide the best possible feedback you can. You will then return your Project 1 peer review form to your peers via Canvas message by 11:59 p.m. on September 8th. So the same system that you use to contact me, that is how you will provide the completed peer review forms to your peers. Now, in your final draft submission, you're going to submit your rough draft, your 2 peer review forms, the forms that you completed for your peers, and your final draft to the folder available in the assignments tab on Canvas before 11:59 p.m. on September 15th. One thing that I want to note, please, please, please include your rough draft, include your peer review forms in there. I have had students, as we'll see here in a second, those are part of your grade. And if I don't see those in your final draft submission, then you're going to lose points on that. And so be sure that you include all of those documents in addition to your final draft. So with this, I've had a couple different ways of how students will format it. You can either submit them all on one document, much like I ask you to do with the weekly homework submissions, or to keep everything, to keep the formatting easier to navigate. Some students have submitted them separately. So like, here's one peer review form that I completed, here's the other peer review form I completed, here's my rough draft, here's my final draft. So for these major projects, it's not that big of a headache for me, and it's usually easier to keep all those documents together. So however you want to approach that submission, you're more than welcome to. So we have got this detailed grading rubric, and what I will do, so this lets you essentially know how I am going to grade your assignment. Now, what I will do is, after I receive the final drafts, I will use this rubric and assign you scores that are appropriate for what is included. I will also use this as an opportunity to provide additional feedback. Now, in these comments, you'll see things that work really well. I'm usually really good at noting that, to say, hey, this is great. Keep on doing this for, the rest of the semester, or maybe, think about how you might work this skill into future drafts. And other times I will say, okay, this is something that we can continue to work on. This is something that you might want to keep an eye out for in future projects or future assignments. So this is really where I'm going to be providing sort of last feedback on this for this particular unit, that you'll want to keep an eye out for as we progress throughout the semester. So again, you can see a detailed breakdown of where all the points go, what exactly I am looking for. So, and then I will return these to you when I post your score on Canvas. So that is the information regarding Project 1, Rhetorical Analysis. If there are any questions I can answer, or if there are any parts of the assignments you'd like me to clarify or you'd like to chat about, please feel free to message me on Canvas. All right, everyone, until next time.